In my family's carefully curated portrait of success, I was the one always cropped out. My father and brothers are investment bankers. My mother sits on charity boards. They are a dynasty of quiet, beige, country club-approved achievement. I am a comic book artist. To them, it wasn't a career. It was a childish, slightly grubby hobby I refused to outgrow. I was the family's resident pariah, the one they talked about with a sigh and a shake of the head. Tonight is the perfect example. It's the launch party for my first graphic novel, a project I've poured my soul into for 3 years. It's being held at a trendy downtown gallery, and the RSVP list is packed. A few hours ago, I got a text from my older brother. It was a photo of the whole family, all dressed up, raising champagne glasses. The caption read, "Cheers from Dad's big award dinner. So proud. Wish you were here, but you know how it is." I knew exactly how it was. I hadn't been invited. My scruffy, creative life wasn't fit for their polished, important world. They were at a black tie gala, politely excluding me. What they don't know, what they have no idea of, is that the award my father is accepting tonight is the Civic Arts Patron of the Year award. And the sole reason he won it is for his massive anonymous donation to the city's largest independent publisher. My publisher. He's accepting an award for funding the very dream he spent my entire life ridiculing. The party they excluded me from is a party that exists only because of me. Of course. The irony of my father accepting an award for funding my dream is so thick I could ink it. This whole situation, him at his sterile gala, me at my vibrant, chaotic launch party, is the culmination of a lifetime of them trying to shove my square peg life into their round hole of snobbery. I remember the intervention. I was a year out of art school, broke but happy, pouring everything I had into my webcomic. They sat me down in the formal living room, the one with the plastic on the furniture. My father had a list of respectable careers for artists, like designing corporate logos. My brother James, the banker, had printed out my estimated annual income and compared it to his bonus. "It's not a viable career, Chloe," he'd said with a sigh. "It's a hobby, and frankly, it's embarrassing." My other brother, David, the doctor, just asked, "Don't you want to do something that matters?" Then there was David's wedding. I had offered to design their wedding invitations, a custom piece of art to celebrate their story. My mother had looked at me with a pained smile and said, "That's a sweet thought, dear, but we've hired a professional calligrapher. We want a classic, elegant feel." At the wedding itself, I was seated at a table with the distant cousins, far from the head table. During the family photos, the photographer kept trying to place me, and my mother would subtly steer him away, making sure I was on the very edge, easily cropped out. My vibrant artistic identity was a stain on their perfect beige family portrait. They never once came to a comic convention. They never read a single issue of the series that got me nominated for my first industry award. To them, my world wasn't just smaller than theirs. It didn't exist. So the fact that my father is about to be celebrated as a patron of that same world is a cosmic joke. He signed a check, advised by his wealth manager, to a promising independent arts foundation for a tax break. He was so disdainful of my world, he never even bothered to ask the name of the publisher the foundation was supporting. He never realized he was funding the very thing he was trying to erase. He didn't just crop me out of the photo. He accidentally paid to have it developed. The graphic novel, Pariah, wasn't an overnight success. It was the result of 1,000 lonely nights, of cheap coffee and ink-stained fingers, of believing in a world no one else in my family could see. I poured every bit of my frustration, every ounce of my feeling of being an outsider, onto the page. When I finally finished, I sold it to a small, passionate, independent publisher for an advance that barely covered my rent for 3 months. It was, in my family's eyes, the very definition of a failed enterprise. But then a funny thing happened. The people who read it, the other pariahs, the other square pegs, they saw themselves in my story. It started with a few glowing reviews on niche blogs. Then it won a small indie comics award. My mother, when I told her, had just said, "Oh, that's nice, dear." The real shift came when a famous actress posted a picture of herself reading it on her Instagram. The post went viral. Suddenly, Pariah wasn't just a comic book. It was a statement. It shot up the bestseller lists, not in the graphic novel category, but the main fiction list. It sat there for weeks, nestled between a thriller by a household name and a literary prize winner. My agent's phone started ringing. The calls were from Hollywood. The movie deal we signed was for a life-changing amount of money. The final, perfect, cosmic joke was delivered by my publisher a week before the launch party. He was ecstatic. "You're not going to believe this," he'd said over the phone. "We can finally give Pariah the marketing budget it deserves. We just received a massive unsolicited grant from the Civic Arts Foundation." He mentioned that the foundation's sole patron was a local investment banker, my father. My own father, in a desperate, tax-deductible attempt to seem cultured, had anonymously funded the engine of my success. He had paid for the party he refused to attend. He had bought the spotlight that was, at long last, shining directly on me, leaving him completely in the dark. The pariah had just inherited the kingdom, and the king didn't even know he had paid for the coronation. The two parties were in different universes. Mine was in a packed, vibrant art gallery downtown, filled with the loud, joyful chaos of creative people, artists, writers, fans, who had come to celebrate Pariah. Theirs was across town in a hushed, gold-leafed hotel ballroom, a formal affair where success was measured in the vintage of the wine and the net worth of the person sitting next to you, their universe shattered around dessert. A well-known local journalist, a guest at their gala, got a push notification on his phone. He leaned across the table. "Charles," he said to my father, his voice loud enough for the whole table to hear. "I'm seeing a news alert from Hollywood. Reporter, a 7-figure movie deal for a graphic novel called Pariah. The author is a Chloe Peterson. Any relation?" My brother later told me about the silence that fell over the table. The way my father's face went pale, the frantic, furious typing on their phones under the tablecloth. They weren't proud. They were blindsided. Their pariah. Their embarrassing little secret had just become a public success story, and they had lost control of the narrative. The first text was from my mother. It didn't say, "Congratulations." It said, "You should have told us. People are asking questions. This is very awkward for your father." Then, the final betrayal. An hour later, as I was on stage thanking my publisher and my fans, they walked into the back of the gallery. All 4 of them, dressed in their black tie finery, looking like aristocratic ghosts at a rock concert. They cornered me after I came, off stage. There were no hugs, no smiles, just a frantic, desperate attempt to reclaim their property. "Chloe, we need to handle this," my father said, his voice a low, urgent whisper. "We'll hire a publicist. We'll frame this as a project our family has been nurturing from the start, a testament to your creative upbringing." My brother James chimed in, his eyes wide with a greedy, jealous light. 7 figures? You need to let me and Dad manage that money. You can't be trusted with a sum like that. They hadn't come to celebrate me. They had come to absorb me. My success wasn't a source of pride for them. It was a PR crisis to be managed and a financial asset to be seized. After a lifetime of pushing me away, of cropping me out of the picture, they were now desperately trying to climb into the frame with me. And I knew with absolute certainty that the party was over. At least, their invitation to it was. I looked at their 4 faces, illuminated by the flashing lights of the gallery, and I saw them clearly for the first time. Not as my family, but as a hostile board of directors attempting a corporate takeover of my soul. They weren't proud of me. They were just furious they hadn't seen the stock price rising. The last, tender, hopeful part of me that had always yearned for their approval simply turned to dust. It was a quiet, internal severance. The pariah had just fired her board. My publisher, a wonderful man named Ben, must have seen the tension. He walked over and gently touched my arm. "Chloe, the journalist from the Times is here. Is everything all right?" He was my exit, my shield. I gave him a small, grateful smile before turning, back to my family. My voice was low, for their ears only, but it was filled with the cold, hard weight of a lifetime of their dismissals. "This party is for the people who believed in this world when it was just scribbles on a page," I said. "This party is for the people who see me. You have never been those people. This is not your success. This is not your party." and you are no longer welcome at mine." My mother's face crumpled. "Chloe, after everything we've done for you, the best thing you ever did for me," I cut her off, my voice still a whisper, "was to teach me, through your constant disapproval, to trust my own voice. You taught me how to be a pariah, and a pariah knows how to stand alone." I looked past them at the room full of light and laughter and genuine celebration. "You excluded me from your world for my entire life," I said. "Tonight, I'm just returning the favor. Please, leave my party. Now." I didn't wait for their response. I turned my back on them, a simple final act of severance, and walked with Ben toward the warmth and the light, toward my real family. I could feel their 4 pairs of eyes on my back, but for the first time, they had no weight. I left them standing in the shadows of a celebration they had no part in, finally and completely, cropped out of the picture. As the gallery door closed behind them, it was like a suffocating humidity had finally broken. The air in the room felt lighter. The music sounded clearer. I took a deep, cleansing breath, and for the first time all night, I was truly present. The victory wasn't loud or explosive. It was a quiet, profound peace that settled over the room. The rest of the night was a beautiful blur. I talked with the journalist from the Times, not as a pariah defending her weird hobby, but as a creator discussing her work. I signed books for young artists with stars in their eyes, one of whom whispered, "Your book made me feel less alone," a review worth more than any movie deal. I laughed with my agent, my publisher, my friends, my real family, the one I had built piece by piece out of shared passions and mutual respect. Near the end of the night, my publisher, Ben, handed me the microphone for one last thank you. I looked out at the sea of smiling, happy faces. These were my people. "I used to think that success meant finally getting an invitation to the right party," I said, my voice thick with emotion but stronger than it had ever been. I spent years hoping to be accepted into a room where I never truly belonged. But I was wrong. Success isn't about getting invited. It's about building your own room and sending out your own invitations. I raised my glass to them. This is my room, and this is the greatest party I have ever been to, because every single person here tonight belongs. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for being my family. The applause that followed was warm, genuine, and unconditional. I was surrounded not by the family I was born into, but by the one I had earned. And in that room, full of light and laughter and love, I finally understood. I hadn't been a pariah because I was unworthy. I had been a pariah because I was waiting for the wrong party to start. 2 years later, I'm standing on a red carpet in Los Angeles. The movie based on Pariah is premiering, and the entire night feels like a surreal, beautiful dream. I'm wearing a custom-made gown that is more art than fabric, the kind of dress my mother would call a spectacle. And she's right. It is. I am. Standing beside me are not my parents or my brothers, but my real family. My publisher, Ben, my agent, and the circle of artists and friends who stood by me when I was just a girl drawing comics in a tiny apartment. I haven't spoken to my family since I asked them to leave my party. I know they see me. My success is a public fact now, a story in the magazines they read at their country club. I'm sure they tell people how proud they are, a desperate attempt to write themselves back into a story they chose to exit. But their opinion is a foreign currency in my new country. It has no value here. I learned the most important lesson that night in the gallery. You can spend your whole life begging for a seat at a table where you'll never be welcome, or you can get up and build your own. My life as their pariah, their sad, little, cropped-out secret, is over. The best part of my story began the moment theirs ended. To anyone out there who has ever been made to feel like an outcast, stop waiting for an invitation. Go build your own party, your own world, your own glorious, unapologetic spectacle. Share a story in the comments about the moment you decided to stop waiting and start building. Let's celebrate the parties we host for ourselves. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe for more stories about finding your own main event.